Obviously, we're here about internet radio. The internet has afforded radio lots of different tools to build its on-air audience. Of course, some of the hottest ones are social media. There's mobile apps, video content. Of course, we're all streaming now, simulcast, and even sometimes complimentary internet-only streams, or perhaps you're an internet-only webcaster. The experts on our first panel, online tools that drive offline listening, are going to discuss what works best on the internet that helps drive audience to your broadcast AM or FM stream. Preslav Interactive Revenue is recognized as the industry's thought leader on database marketing. The database email, contesting, and survey platform is used by more than 800 radio stations, television stations, and newspapers. PIR also provides consulting services on database development, analysis, and monetization. So to moderate the first panel, please welcome Preslav Interactive Revenue founder and president, Ruth Preslav.
Don't look into the light. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on your time zone, whichever day, whatever hour you're on. We're delighted to do the kickoff panel, and we've put some time into really presenting something that should help everybody when it comes to online tools that drive offline listening. I thought the first way that we would start is just ask Joe and Michael and Annette just to say just a couple of words, because I find when I'm in the audience and I have no idea who's actually speaking to me, it's helpful to know who those people are. Joe?
Sure. Joe Pruce. I'm with Digital Radio One and operate out of Cincinnati and Indianapolis markets as digital sales manager for the two markets.
Great, thanks.
And only about 1 billion desktop computers.
Michael Fisher, Senior Vice President of Engagement for Triton Digital. I work with our clients on best practices and research and development of new engagement techniques.
Great. I'm Annette Tonti. I'm the CEO of a company called MoFuse, where we enable businesses around the world to become mobile web enabled extremely affordably and easily. So we'll talk in mobile web.
Why don't we start with that, Annette? When we really are talking about what these tools are, why don't we just start with just a couple of the different platforms that we find stations are using to put their product on, to go beyond the transmitter?
You know, we're living in a great moment, I think, for all of us that have been living digitally for quite a while, because obviously this is what everybody's talking about. There's like 5.6 billion of these, and only about 1 billion desktop computers. So a huge change in the world. But what does that mean? So this device, which by the way, it kind of resembles the old time transistor when we walked around in the stick seats, and I actually just used one during a hurricane out east. It was great. It used batteries.
Yeah,
anyway, the notion here is this changes everything for your brand, and the reason is it seems to be that people that have one of these in their pocket, and now everybody does, they feel very, very enabled to create their own content. So everybody becomes a broadcaster with the scenario that this is a cousin to social media. Everybody seems to be creating content and distributing that content really inexpensively. So what does that mean? It means that you need to also be at those touch points like mobile, obviously. You all probably are aware of that. But you also have to meet those individuals at that touch point in a way that enables them, because they're thinking that they're going to create, they're going to be interactive with you, and they want to do it wherever they are. That's a big change.
That is a big change, but it's still kind of, great. One more place for our listeners to go, but one more place for radio content to go. Exactly. So, Joe, how do you take all of these different platforms, and can you give us a real-life example of, great, it's there, what do we do with it?
Absolutely. Excuse me. So Radio One, we specialize in the African-American population throughout the United States. We're in 14 markets. And from an African-American standpoint, the index, as far as being first early adopters to technology, and especially smartphones, is huge. And so we've taken it one step further. We actually have a promotion that is on all of our station websites and all of our airwaves across the country right now, where we are giving our listeners free smartphones.
Great. So just say that one more time. You're
thank
giving your listeners free smartphones.
Exactly. We are giving them free smartphones. We have partnered.
You are bringing the mountain to Mohammed. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So they already, we know they like them. We know they want them. So we're providing an easier
I would
access.
like one free too. Yeah.
I'll provide you a link as soon as we're done.
Okay.
But it's a partnership with the indirect marketing arm of most of the major providers in the United States. And not only are we fulfilling smartphones and putting them into our listeners' hands, but we're making revenue on the back end of those deals as well. So
this isn't purely altruistic.
no. Yes.
And what happens? I mean, literally walk us through. I see a link on your site. I can get a free smartphone. Nothing is free.
Right.
What literally happens?
Just like you would if you were to walk in a Verizon store or T-Mobile store, you would have a 2-year agreement to get a device. Instead of it being $100 or $200 or whatever it might be from a charge standpoint, it is free. So if you were to go through one of our station sites, it's purely free. So.
And now there has to be a payoff to Radio 1, because you don't want them to get that so that they can start streaming iHeartRadio.
Right. So
what happens
even more
once they
amazing.
do
So
that?
the way the system is set up, depending on what market someone orders the actual phone from, when it comes to delivered to them within 72 hours, it is preloaded with all of our station apps for that market. So if you are in Philadelphia, and we have 3 radio stations in
Great.
Philadelphia, when you get the phone in the mail, it already has the station apps preloaded. So.
That's pretty cool. Have you been able to track any kind of usage in terms of, we did this promotion, we know X number of smartphones infiltrated the market, we have our apps on it, we can see streaming numbers going up, we can see our video is being used more often.
We definitely will. It's a little early right now.
Okay.
We are about not quite 4 weeks into the actual sales process of all of this. So,
Very cool.
But it's going very well.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the idea. Remember, we used to all give radios away? Because we wanted people to be able to actually listen to the radio. So now you're giving smartphones away so that they can listen to the radio, but just listen through a different platform.
We used to give away Target tuners. Remember those little? They only picked up your station.
That's right.
That's what we used to
Yeah, that's a really hard thing to do on the internet. I think China is trying to do that. I'm not sure if they're making it happen. Michael, you and I work in the world of working with multiple media properties. And we provide them all the same, you provide them your technology, I provide them mine, your training, my training, and yet we can take even the same group, and Joe, I bet you have seen this, Annette probably as well, some places it's fabulous. We can do no wrong, we're brilliant, they're making money, they're just working it, and some places, all the same lineup, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that we're probably both finding as we talk to our client base, and that is, the realities of the world today is that people are short-staffed, right? And technology has eclipsed what they were used to doing, right? So radio didn't create all these great technology tools, and we're now trying to retrofit, actually radio, television, and print, we're now trying to retrofit our missions based on technology. So I think that you're right, absolutely right. Our experience is that every time that the client is fully engaged from a personnel standpoint, you see a lot more reaction in the online world, and you see a lot more participation within the market, and you also see a greater potential for various concepts to go viral. I think that every person who works in media, their greatest wish is to create something that would go viral that puts them in a positive light, not a negative light. So I think
It's an
that
important
as we
distinction.
create things, having been a program director for so long and now stepping into the digital side, the tenets are pretty much the same. The issue is that program directors have to understand, and as I've heard from a lot of clients, a lot of the mandate down to the staff is you have to be successful online and on air. And because radio people typically weren't classically trained in the art of digital, they sometimes have a hard time wrapping their arms around the concept and figuring out how to execute. And the ironic thing is that they've been doing it all along. The only thing that's changed is the technology that empowers them to get broader reach and greater distribution. And now, because we can close the feedback loop using this technology, it's put extra pressure on broadcast companies now to really pay attention. I really believe that the listener is no longer a listener, they're a media consumer, and that the companies should be the listeners. Because if you go onto Twitter or you go onto Facebook and you're tracking sentiment or what people are saying about your station, these are all great indicators of how you can drive additional online listening. And as I said earlier, I look at the online world as blue ocean of Cume. because anytime we can go out there and try to extend our message and get into a stream of someone's social consciousness off the air to drive them back on the air and have them share it, it goes back to when I would hand you a cassette tape and go, you've got to hear this
Right,
record.
that's exactly right.
No one
It's
called
just
it
easier.
burning, no one called it ripping, no one called it social sharing.
Or illegal downloads.
Illegal downloads. I would take a cassette and say, you've got to hear this album.
Right.
It is unbelievable. It's word of mouth. Now we have digital tools to do that. And I think that staff at radio stations, the ones that do it well and embrace it, understand it and have the time, they know how to allocate time to do it. That's the biggest issue.
And now, do you see anything different?
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. But no, we're not necessarily talking
can
about broadcasters. We're just talking
Definitely
about
add to that. I mean,
humans. Yeah.
I actually think, so to take that one step further, the notion of time has changed. So in the old days, if we were going to produce something, we took a long time to do it, and the technology was extremely expensive, and you needed to do that. Now, digital technologies, especially in mobile, for example, you actually can get on and try these things out very, very rapidly, just in time. So when there is the mob scene out front here, you can actually create that on a mobile website very affordably, very easily, and very quickly. And that is precisely what your listeners are doing. They're creating content, and you need to become more rapid, content creators. The good news is the digital tools are out there. We provide a platform, and what we've observed all the time are large companies continue to behave in the ways they're used to behaving, which means they take an extremely long time to create anything. And already their customers or their listeners, viewers, are already ahead of them creating it. Yeah.
Right, so really what the two of you have said in very different markets is that it comes back to listening to the listeners or listening to the users. I mean, just recognizing that it's not pushed down, it's bringing it back up. Joe, and we don't need horror stories, but I mean, just within your experience, getting radio staffs to embrace this. I mean, we all talk about this, and I'm sure there's a good split among radio and non-radio people, programming and salespeople, but great ideas. Now we've got to get the dogs to eat the dog food, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about culture change, and it's not just from a programming standpoint. It has to exist on a sales side too, and not thinking just in silos of going after radio dollars or digital dollars, but really approaching it from a client's needs and developing something that, no matter what the tools you use, answer your client's needs. So it's from a sales standpoint, I think radio in particular is going through an interesting time right now. Of there's a lot of people that have been in the business a long time, and they find these tools intimidating. So
Right.
as we move forward, we definitely look for people that those tools come natural to, and then we can teach them radio much quicker.
Right.
than
So
the
if it's video,
reverse.
if it's streaming, if it's mobile, whatever it is, it's still a matter of basic training, understand it, embrace your platforms, make it work. Don't do 1,000 things at one time, regardless of the technology. These are really short panels, so we just want to kind of wrap it up with like the one take home. And so we can, Annette, Michael, Joe, we can just kind of work it that way.
Great. So my takeaway is these technologies now become very affordable, very accessible by everyone, and you really need to begin the process now of changing the way you're testing, creating content, and reaching all of those touch points, mobile being the big one.
I guess my takeaway is recruitment, local recruitment of recruiting people who have digital savvy when they walk in the door, so that you don't have to try to teach them how to use various tools. I mean, you can teach them how to use various tools, but they have some understanding of it. I was playing with my iPad with a 6-year-old girl the other day, and she's like playing Angry Birds and surfing the web. I mean, so we have to do a better job of recruiting people in our industry, in all media, that can actually take the tools that are in place to make it work. Recruitment is a number one thing. It's critical. Everyone, and trust me, as we said earlier, there's a Mark Zuckerberg in every organization, from the front desk to accounting, and I believe there's people in media companies that are dying to participate in the process. They just have to be asked.
All right, Joe, we're asking you. No pressure.
No, and I couldn't agree more. We talked about this before we came in, and it's really, especially from my perspective as a media company that is constantly in this transition over the last few years we've been in, to get out of just being internally thinking of ourselves as a radio company and thinking of ourselves as this opportunity for multiple touch points for a particular audience, and that goes across the board from programming to sales. And the more people that we have that understand that from a culture standpoint in the building, the quicker we can get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think when we are talking about online tools and offline listening, I mean, I think the foundation of all of it is understanding who your users are, so that you can drive them to that tool. You know, and so when we, you know, I always bring it back to the database, just in terms of understanding who's out there and how they want to use you. And, you know, really digging into, I'm used to this person being, you know, an FM listener, and there's 100 things we could talk about in terms of PPM and driving people back to the station, but they're going to use all these different platforms, understand what their interests are, and then being able to provide what they want. Thank you, each of you, very much. We did a lot of prep for this. Appreciate it.